Welcome to another episode of Mastering Cybersecurity, developed by baremetalcyber.com. Let's dive in.
Pretexting is often reduced to a simple lie, but that description misses the part that makes the technique persuasive. The attacker does not merely state something false. The attacker creates a believable identity, situation, and reason for making contact, then uses that constructed context to influence another person's decision. That distinction affects whether a request feels routine, whether a security warning is noticed, and whether someone believes normal verification can be skipped. In this episode, the central question is not only how to recognize dishonesty, it is how to recognize when a carefully prepared explanation is being used to manufacture trust. By the end, you should be able to explain what pretexting is, how it differs from related forms of social engineering, why apparently ordinary requests can carry risk, and how individuals and organizations can verify a claim without relying on the story presented by the requester.
A pretext is the fabricated explanation that gives a request meaning. Pretexting is the act of using that explanation, usually together with a false or misleading identity, to persuade someone to reveal information or perform an action. Social engineering is the broader category of manipulating people rather than relying only on technical weaknesses, while phishing is one possible delivery method that may carry a pretext through email or another message. Impersonation is also related, but impersonation by itself describes pretending to be someone else. Pretexting goes further by supplying the surrounding reason, such as why the contact is happening, why the request appears necessary, and why the target should respond now. The main distinction to remember is that the pretext is not just the claimed identity, it is the complete manufactured context designed to make a request appear reasonable. Credibility is the working material of pretexting. Attackers may claim to be coworkers, vendors, support personnel, customers, auditors, delivery services, or authority figures because those roles already carry familiar expectations. The claim becomes more convincing when it includes details that appear to fit the target's environment, such as a real department name, a public job title, a known supplier, or the language normally used in a business process. None of those details proves the requester is legitimate. Public information, previous communications, exposed records, and ordinary observation can all provide enough accuracy to make a false story feel informed. The attacker usually does not need to imitate every detail perfectly. The goal is to reduce doubt long enough for the target to accept the explanation and act before checking the identity, authority, or purpose behind the request. Pretexting succeeds by taking advantage of normal social habits rather than by defeating judgment through some mysterious psychological trick. People are accustomed to cooperating with colleagues, answering customers, assisting support staff, respecting authority, and resolving urgent problems. A well-constructed pretext places the request inside one of those expected relationships. Urgency can narrow the time available for reflection, while politeness can make verification feel rude. A claim of authority can discourage questions, and an appeal for help can make refusal feel unnecessarily difficult. Attackers may also use routine language so that the interaction does not feel like a security event at all. The important defensive insight is that the emotional pressure and the business explanation are both parts of the attempted influence. A request that depends on secrecy, haste, embarrassment, or fear of delaying work deserves verification, even when the person making it sounds calm and credible.
The requested outcome can be information, access, approval, money, or a change to an established process. A pretexter may ask for account details, internal documents, personal information, password reset assistance, payment changes, access to a restricted area, or confirmation of facts that support a later attempt. Some requests appear harmless because each individual detail seems minor. A name, schedule, vendor relationship, system label, or reporting structure can still help an attacker strengthen another pretext. The action may also be indirect. Convincing someone to open a document, transfer a conversation, approve a login prompt, change a contact record, or bypass a normal review can create an opportunity without producing an obvious immediate loss. The useful question is not whether the request sounds technically dangerous. Ask whether the requester has a verified need, verified authority, and an approved path for obtaining what is being requested.
Pretexting is not tied to one communication channel. It can occur through email, telephone calls, text messages, collaboration platforms, social media, support tickets, video meetings, or face-to-face contact. A single attempt may move across several channels because each new contact can make the story appear more established. An email may introduce the supposed issue, a call may add pressure, and a message may provide final instructions. The use of multiple channels does not prove legitimacy because the same actor can control all of them. Likewise, a familiar display name, caller identifier, profile photograph, or email signature is not reliable identity evidence by itself. The defining feature remains the fabricated context used to guide the target's behavior. When defenders focus only on blocking one channel, they may miss that the persuasion technique can reappear through another route with the same identity claim and business explanation.
Warning signs are usually found in the relationship between the claim, the request, and the normal process. The requester may know some accurate details but avoid information that a legitimate participant should understand. The contact path may be unusual for the claimed role, or the request may require an exception that removes review, logging, or approval. Pressure to keep the matter private can prevent the target from consulting someone who would recognize the inconsistency. The requester may treat ordinary verification as an obstacle, become impatient when asked to follow procedure, or provide contact information that routes verification back to the same person. No single sign proves pretexting, and legitimate work sometimes involves urgency or unusual circumstances. The stronger indicator is a pattern in which the story is used to replace independent evidence, and the target is encouraged to act before identity, authority, and purpose have been confirmed.
Before we continue, this is a brief promotional message. This episode is brought to you by the Bare Metal Cyber Academy. The Academy is a place for people who want to continue developing practical cybersecurity knowledge through clear, structured education. Topics such as pretexting become easier to recognize when you understand both the human decision and the security process surrounding it. You can visit baremetalcyber.com to explore the Academy and see the learning opportunities currently available. There are no shortcuts promised, only an opportunity to keep building useful knowledge in a deliberate way. Now let's return to how verification can interrupt a convincing pretext before it produces an unwanted action. The most reliable response to a suspected pretext is independent verification. Independent means the verification path does not come from the person making the request. Calling a number supplied in the same message, following a link provided by the requester, or asking the requester to identify another contact may simply keep the target inside the attacker's controlled story. A better approach is to use a known directory, an established vendor record, an official service channel, or a contact method already trusted before the current interaction began. Verification should address three separate questions. Is the person or organization genuine? Does that person have authority to make this request? And is the requested action valid under the circumstances? Confirming identity alone is not enough because a real account can be compromised and a real employee can misunderstand or exceed their authority.
Effective organizational controls reduce the amount of damage that any one persuasive conversation can cause. Approval requirements, separation of duties, limited permissions, documented change procedures, callback rules, and strong identity proofing create points where a request must be supported by more than confidence. Payment detail changes can require confirmation through a known contact, while access changes can require review by an authorized owner. Help desks can use identity verification methods that do not depend on easily researched personal facts. Multi-factor authentication, MFA, can reduce some account risks, but an approval prompt should never be treated as proof that the underlying request is legitimate. Controls work best when they are designed around predictable pressure. A process that disappears whenever someone claims urgency is not a dependable control. The objective is to make verification a normal part of work rather than an improvised act of suspicion.
A strong defense also avoids blaming the person who received the request. Pretexting is designed to exploit cooperation, trust, responsiveness, and respect for normal roles, which are qualities organizations usually encourage. When employees believe they will be criticized for asking questions, slowing a transaction, or reporting an embarrassing interaction, the attacker gains additional leverage. Leaders should make it acceptable to pause and verify, especially when money, credentials, sensitive information, or access is involved. Reporting should be encouraged even when the target did not comply, because the attempt may reveal a broader campaign or an exposed business process. A person who shared limited information should also report promptly, rather than waiting to see whether harm occurs. The faster the organization understands what was requested and what was disclosed, the faster it can protect related accounts, processes, and contacts. Pretexting overlaps with several other attack labels, and the same incident may fit more than one. Phishing describes deceptive electronic messages intended to influence a recipient, while voice phishing and text message phishing describe common channel variations. Business email compromise often involves the misuse or imitation of business identities to redirect payments, obtain information, or influence a transaction. An attacker may use a pretext inside any of those methods by inventing the role and situation that make the request believable. The labels are useful when they identify different parts of the activity. The channel tells defenders where the contact occurred, the impersonated identity tells them whose trust was borrowed, and the pretext explains the fabricated reason offered to the target. Treating every deceptive message as merely phishing can hide the need to examine business procedures, authority claims, and information that made the story credible.
Investigating a pretexting attempt requires more than checking whether a message looked suspicious. Defenders should preserve the communication, record the claimed identity, identify the requested information or action, and determine which normal process the requester tried to use or bypass. Email headers, call records, account activity, directory changes, support tickets, approval logs, and earlier contacts may show how the attempt developed. The review should also ask what accurate information the attacker possessed and where that information may have come from. Public websites, professional profiles, automatic replies, vendor directories, and routine communications can reveal names, roles, travel, reporting relationships, and business timing without indicating that a breach occurred. Internal details may point instead to previous compromise, excessive disclosure, or a trusted third party that was targeted first. Even when the final request fails, information revealed during the interaction may support another attempt against a different person or process. A practical way to evaluate a suspicious interaction is to separate the story from the evidence. First, identify the claimed identity, the claimed situation, and the exact action being requested. Then ask what independent evidence supports each claim and whether the request follows the normal approval path. Notice any pressure that discourages verification, including urgency, secrecy, fear of inconvenience, or an appeal to authority. Use a trusted contact method that existed before the interaction and confirm both the person's identity and the validity of the action. If the request cannot be verified, do not improvise an exception. Preserve the message or call details and report the attempt through the organization's established security or fraud channel. This method works because it does not require you to prove that the story is false before taking a safe response. It requires the requester to meet the same verification standard as any legitimate request. Pretexting is the use of a fabricated identity or situation to create credibility and persuade someone to reveal information or perform an action. Its power comes from making the request feel consistent with a familiar role, a routine process, or an urgent need, not from the full statement alone. That is why a convincing name, accurate detail, professional tone, or familiar channel should not replace verification. The appropriate defense is to separate identity, authority, and purpose, then confirm each through an independent path and an established process. Organizations support that decision by limiting permissions, requiring meaningful approvals, making verification normal, and encouraging prompt reporting. When you evaluate the evidence behind the claim, rather than the confidence of the person presenting it, the pretext loses the advantage it was designed to create. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit DailyCyber.News.